Some roads are built to connect places. Others exist to trap moments that were never meant to end. Route 463 is one of them. Drivers say that if you travel this road late at night, you may see a woman standing at the edge of the asphalt, silent, motionless, wearing a white hat. If you slow down, if you look too long, if you look back, you may never truly leave the road again. This is the true horror of the white hat ghost of Route 463. Chapter 1: The White at the End of the Road. Route 463 at night carries a coldness that feels fundamentally wrong. As if the road was never meant for the living alone. Dense forest presses in from both sides, the treetops arching overhead like enormous hands reaching out of the darkness, blocking the moonlight and strangling every natural sound. That night, Min was driving alone. The digital clock on the dashboard flicked over to 1:47 a.m. as he entered the sloping forest stretch. The place locals whispered about, where the wind doesn't blow, yet the leaves still move. Min had come to search for the truth. He wanted to film a video about the rumor countless local drivers had mentioned. A mysterious woman wearing a wide-brimmed white hat, appearing on Route 463 during moonless nights. Some said she was the victim of a crime that was never fully investigated. Others believed she was not a single woman at all, but the shadow of every woman who had died on this road. But the most terrifying detail was not who she was. It was the rule everyone agreed on. Anyone who sees her never returns to Route 463 again. Min slowed down as he approached a narrow curve. His headlights pierced the darkness ahead, illuminating a thin layer of mist clinging to the asphalt. There were no passing cars, no house lights, only the sound of tires grinding softly against damp pavement. Then the headlights caught something. A figure stood motionless at the edge of the road. A woman. She wore a long white dress. Her arms hung loosely at her sides. Long hair fell forward, obscuring most of her face. A white wide-brimmed hat shaded whatever remained visible, turning her silhouette into a pale, indistinct shape without clear features. She did not move. She did not flinch. She did not react, even as the headlights shone directly into her body. Min slammed the brakes. His body lurched forward as his heart began to pound violently. His hands clenched the steering wheel as the headlights flooded the woman's figure. She still did not move. Min blinked. Just once. And in the instant his eyelids lifted again. The woman was gone. No footprints. No sound. No rustling leaves. No wind. Only the empty road remained, silent and lifeless, as if nothing had ever stood there at all. A chill spread through Min's chest. He inhaled sharply and grabbed his camera, but his hands were trembling too badly to hold it steady. The rear window suddenly fogged, as though something had exhaled against the glass from the outside. Min turned quickly. Nothing. Yet the feeling did not fade. Something was watching, even though there was nothing to see. He forced himself to calm down and pressed the accelerator. As the car began to move, Min heard it. A faint sound. Very faint. Like fabric brushing against metal, directly above his head. Then again. Slow. Steady. As if someone were walking from the back of the car. Toward the front. Across the roof of Min's vehicle. Chapter 2. The driver WHO no longer drives at night. The next morning, Min woke with the heavy feeling of someone who hadn't truly slept. The sound from the night before, the faint brushing of fabric across the roof of his car, still echoed clearly in his mind. Vivid enough that he went outside to check the vehicle, even though he knew it was pointless. There were no scratches, no marks, no traces of anything at all. Yet the sense of being watched had not disappeared. That afternoon, Min returned to the area near Route 463 while it was still daylight. He stopped at a small ramen shop tucked beside the road, its faded sign dulled by years of rain and sun. The shop was nearly empty. Only one elderly man sat alone in the far corner, his back hunched as if he were carrying the weight of something far heavier than age. A bowl of ramen sat untouched in front of him, the broth long since cooled. Min ordered his meal and took a seat nearby. When he casually mentioned Route 463, the man froze. His chopsticks trembled in his grip, his fingers tightening until the knuckles turned white. "You drive at night too?" the man asked, his voice hoarse, like gravel scraping against stone. Min shook his head and explained that he was filming. The man's expression did not soften. Instead, his eyes darkened, as though Min had unlocked a door he had spent years trying to keep sealed. "I used to drive a cargo truck," the man began, staring at the scarred wooden table. "Over 20 years, Route 463 was just another route, until that night." He said it had been lightly raining. The road was slick and completely empty. As his truck climbed the slope, the headlights illuminated a woman wearing a white hat, walking slowly in the middle of the road. She had no reflective gear, no umbrella, no sign of fear. He slammed the brakes. The tires skidded across the wet asphalt. "She looked straight at me," he whispered. "I couldn't see her face, only the shadow of that white hat. Like a hollow pit." When the truck stopped, he glanced down to check the pedals. Only a few seconds passed, but when he looked up again, she wasn't in front of the truck anymore. Min asked quietly, "Then where did she go?" The man swallowed hard. "On the roof." He described a soft thud above the cabin, like bare footsteps on metal. The windshield fogged over, and in the brief moment when the wipers cleared the glass, he saw it. The reflection of a white hat, inverted on the windshield, positioned where no living person could possibly stand. "I didn't look up again," the man said. "I just drove. I didn't check the mirrors. I didn't stop." After that night, every time he drove in the dark, no matter the road, he heard faint scratching on the roof of his vehicle. Slow, patient, as if something were waiting for him to look up. He quit driving soon after. Min hesitated, then asked, "Has anyone ever been followed home?" For the first time, the man looked directly at him. His eyes were deep-set, filled with raw fear. "People who are followed home," he said quietly, "don't usually get the chance to tell anyone." Min stood to leave. The ramen in front of him had gone cold without him noticing. As he turned away, he felt it clearly. Someone standing directly behind him. Very close. He turned. No one was there. Only a single dark water droplet, perfectly round, left on the wooden floor. Chapter 3. The Files That Were Never Meant to Be Opened. After the encounter at the ramen shop, Min no longer believed Route 463 was just another ghost story invented to scare late-night drivers. Too many details overlapped with disturbing precision: the white hat, the sudden appearance, the impossible disappearance. But what unsettled Min most was the expression shared by everyone who had encountered her. No one spoke with curiosity. No one spoke with excitement. Only fear. And regret. Min contacted an old acquaintance who had once worked in the administrative division of the Tokyo police. The man refused to meet openly and instead arranged a quiet meeting in a small cafe hidden deep within a residential neighborhood. When Min mentioned Route 463, the man fell silent for a long time before pulling a thick, yellowed envelope from his bag. "This shouldn't exist," he said in a low voice. "And you shouldn't read it." Inside were copied traffic accident reports, spanning from the late 1970s to the early 2000s. Every case shared the same unsettling pattern. Each accident occurred at night. None involved a collision with another vehicle. And every report began with the same statement. The driver braked suddenly after seeing a woman dressed in white standing on the road. Min read through the files one by one. In most cases, the vehicle had veered off the road and crashed into the forest or a drainage ditch. But something crucial was always missing from the scene. The driver. Some cars had shattered windshields from the inside. Others were found with engines still running. Yet there were no bodies. No drag marks. No signs of escape. One report from 1987 included a handwritten note. Bare footprints discovered in the mud near the forest edge. The footprints appear small in size and lead approximately 30 meters into the woods before abruptly disappearing. Min stared at the attached photograph. The footprints were too small to belong to an adult man, yet far too defined to belong to a child. The final page of the file was an internal memo with no signature. The ink had blurred, as if soaked by water. The text was brief. Identity of the woman remains unknown. No matching records found in local resident databases. Possibility of an unresolved crime victim. Recommendation: Further investigation not advised. Beneath the words was a circular stain, pale and uneven, like the imprint left when the base of a wet hat had been placed on paper, then lifted away. Min looked up and asked why the case had been sealed. The man didn't answer right away. His eyes were tired. "There are things," he finally said, "that cause more people to disappear the closer you get to the truth." When Min left the cafe, the sky had darkened despite the early hour. He felt as though he had crossed an invisible boundary. From the moment he opened that file, Route 463 was no longer just a place he was investigating. It was a place that had become aware of him. Chapter 4. The one WHO sees what should not be seen. Min met Ayako on a drizzling afternoon, inside a small tea shop near the edge of the city. The place had no proper sign, only an old wind chime hanging by the door, producing a thin, brittle sound each time someone entered. Ayako was already there, seated in the far corner with her back to the entrance, as if she didn't want anything standing behind her. She looked ordinary at first glance, a young woman dressed simply. Black hair tied neatly at the nape of her neck, but her eyes were not ordinary. They were the eyes of someone who had seen far too many things that human beings were never meant to see. Before Min even sat down, she spoke. "You've seen her already, haven't you?" Min froze. He hadn't mentioned Route 463. He hadn't mentioned the white hat. But Ayako didn't wait for an answer. She tightened her grip on her teacup, the liquid inside trembling slightly. "The woman in the white hat," Ayako said quietly. "She doesn't appear to everyone, only to those who accidentally step into her moment." Min asked how she knew. Ayako was silent for a long time before explaining that since childhood, she had been able to see what she called residual presences, places where emotions were too intense, deaths too sudden, or resentment too deep to fade away. According to her, Route 463 was one of the densest places she had ever sensed. "But she is different," Ayako continued. "She doesn't just appear, she is searching." Min felt a chill creep down his spine and asked what the woman was searching for. Ayako looked up. For the first time, Min saw genuine fear in her eyes. "A replacement," she answered. "She didn't die and leave. She died, without ever leaving the moment of her death." Ayako explained that the woman in the white hat was trapped on Route 463, endlessly repeating the same stretch of road like a damaged recording. She appeared to drivers because she herself had been moving, walking, when she died. Every time someone slammed their brakes after seeing her, the instant of her death was extended a little longer. "Those who see her more than once," Ayako said, her voice trembling slightly, "are slowly pulled into that loop." Min remembered the sound on the roof of his car, the sensation of someone standing just behind him, unseen. He asked if there was any way to avoid it. Ayako shook her head. "There is no avoiding it," she said, "only being chosen, or not yet chosen." The wind chime by the door suddenly rang loudly. Even though there was no wind, Ayako abruptly grabbed Min's wrist. Her hand was ice cold. "Don't go back to Route 463, she said urgently, "and if you ever see the white hat again, never pick it up." Min was about to ask why when Ayako released his wrist. Her face drained of color. "She's standing outside," Ayako whispered, "right behind you." Min turned around. There was no one there. But the wind chime was still swaying. Chapter 5. The night that should not have been filmed. Min knew he shouldn't return to Route 463. Ayako's warning still echoed clearly in his mind, clear enough that he nearly cancelled the entire plan. But something stronger than fear pulled him back. A sense that if he didn't go now, he would never have another chance. As if the road itself was waiting, and its patience was wearing thin. That night, Min set out with 2 members of his filming crew just before 2 in the morning. The sky was clear, there was no rain, no wind, yet the air felt unusually heavy, pressing down on the car as they drove. The headlights cut through a thin layer of fog, breaking the road ahead into fractured streaks of light. The deeper they went into the forest stretch, the weaker their phone signals became, until they disappeared entirely. "Do you hear that?" one of the crew members asked quietly. Before Min could answer, the sound came. Footsteps. Not on the road, but very close. As if someone were walking parallel to the car, just beyond the reach of the headlights. The steps were slow and steady, neither hurried nor hesitant. The dashboard camera began to tremble. Even though the car wasn't shaking, the screen filled with strange visual noise, accompanied by a faint crackling sound, like breathing pressed too close to the microphone. When they stopped at the narrowest part of the road, Min signaled for everyone to get out. The forest around them was completely silent. No insects, no wind, only the black wall of trees standing unnaturally still. A flashlight beam swept across the asphalt, and they saw it. A white hat, lying directly in the center of the road. It wasn't dirty, it wasn't wet, it looked as if it had just been placed there moments ago. The brim was perfectly dry, untouched, utterly out of place against the damp pavement around it. "Did one of us drop that?" Min asked. No one answered. Min crouched down. His hand hovered only centimeters above the hat when the atmosphere suddenly collapsed inward. The pressure in his chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. Still, he reached out. The moment his fingers touched the brim, every camera lost its signal at once. The screens turned white, audio warped into a long, piercing hiss. Then, very softly, right beside Min's ear, a woman's voice emerged. It wasn't quite speech, more like breath given shape. "Please, take it home for me." Min jerked his hand back. The hat fell onto the road. As soon as it touched the ground, the voice vanished, as if it had never existed. One of the crew members swept his flashlight toward the forest. For a split second, the beam caught a white figure standing deep among the trees. It didn't move, it didn't step forward. It only stood there. "Get in the car, now," Min said, his voice tight. They left Route 463 in silence. No one looked back, but as the car drove away, Min knew with absolute certainty. Something had not stayed behind on that road. It was coming with them. Chapter 6, The One Who Never Came Back. The next morning, Min woke with the unsettling feeling that something was wrong with the space around him. It wasn't a sound, and it wasn't a smell. It was an emptiness, subtle, yet unmistakable, like a piece of the previous night had been quietly removed, leaving behind a cold gap in his memory. Min checked his phone. No new messages, no missed calls, yet a vague sense of dread clung tightly to him. Tuan didn't show up. At first, Min assumed Tuan had simply overslept. But as 10 o'clock passed, then 11, and the phone remained silent, worry crept in. Tuan was never late, especially after dangerous filming sessions. Min called him. The phone rang for a long time before someone finally answered. There was no greeting, only breathing. Heavy, wet, ragged, like someone trying to pull air through a throat filled with water. Beneath it was a steady rustling sound, like damp fabric sliding against a car seat. "Tuan?" Min said. There was no reply, but the breathing suddenly stopped. Silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then another sound emerged. A faint metallic vibration, eerily similar to a car door shifting in the wind. The call disconnected. Min went straight to Ayako. As soon as she heard his story, her face drained of color. Without a word, she opened her laptop and inserted the memory card Tuan had sent the night before. It contained the final video recorded by the dashboard camera in Tuan's car. The footage shook slightly. Tuan was driving through the night. Exhaustion etched into his face, reflected in the rearview mirror. The road ahead was dark and narrow. Route 463. Min held his breath. At first, the back seat was empty. Then, at a bend in the road, the headlights flickered. In a single, fleeting frame, a white shape appeared in the back seat. No sound, no movement, just presence. The white hat was clearly visible in the rearview mirror. Tuan never turned around. He kept driving, completely unaware that a passenger had joined him. But as the video continued, the white figure became clearer, more defined, as if it were slowly stabilizing within the world. The footage ended abruptly when the camera tilted sideways and fell to the floor. In the final frozen frame, Min saw it clearly. The back seat was empty. Ayako closed the laptop. Her hands trembled. She went with him to where she needed to go, Ayako said quietly, and when he finally looked back, he was no longer here. Min asked, his voice barely steady, "What about Tuan?" Ayako didn't answer right away. She looked straight at Min, her expression heavy. "Now," she said, "she knows the way home." Chapter 7. The House Without Shadows. Tuin's house stood in a narrow alley, unnaturally quiet. When Min and Ayako arrived, the afternoon sun was already fading, its weak light failing to dispel the cold that clung to the place. The neighboring houses were sealed shut, doors closed, curtains drawn tight, as if the entire block had silently agreed not to look toward this one. The gate was unlocked. Min pushed it open. The hinge let out a long, piercing creak that echoed far too loudly in the stillness. The moment they stepped into the yard, Min sensed the first thing that was wrong. There were no shadows. The sunlight was there, but the shadows of Min and Ayako on the concrete were faint and distorted, as though something had swallowed part of them. The front door was slightly ajar. Inside, the house was dark. "Tuan?" Min called softly. No answer. A damp, stale odor hung in the air, like wet clothes left too long in a closed car. Min turned on the lights. White light flooded the living room, revealing a space that was disturbingly neat. Nothing was overturned, nothing broken, no signs of struggle. Everything was arranged with unnatural order, as if the owner had simply stood up and walked away, and never returned. Only one object broke the symmetry. A white wide-brimmed hat lay in the center of the room, placed precisely on the floor, perfectly aligned with the sofa, as if positioned with deliberate care. Min froze. The hat was identical to the one they had seen on Route 463. Ayako knelt beside it without touching it, her face tense. "She came inside," Ayako whispered, "and she didn't need to break in." Min leaned closer. The inside of the hat was darkened with uneven stains. Ayako pulled out a handkerchief and gently wiped the lining. A deep, dried red appeared. Blood, mixed with rainwater. That was when Min noticed the second thing that was wrong. There were no mirrors in the living room. Every place where a mirror should have been was bare, leaving only old nail marks on the walls. Ayako's voice dropped even lower. "She hates being seen," she said, "but she needs mirrors to pass through." A faint sound came from the hallway leading to the bedroom. Not footsteps, but the sound of fabric dragging across the floor, slow and heavy. Min felt something pass behind him, close enough to carry a wave of icy air. The bedroom door swung open. Inside, the room was empty, but on the wall opposite the bed, there was a faint human-shaped stain, like the outline left behind when a shadow is pulled away after lingering too long. Ayako stood and pulled Min back. "Tuan is no longer here," she said. "She took him with her, but she hasn't left this house yet." As they stepped outside, Min turned back for one last look. For a brief moment, in the living room window, he saw it. The silhouette of a woman wearing a white hat, standing behind the curtain. She didn't move. She just stood there, watching. Chapter 8. The Name That Was Forgotten. After leaving Tuin's house, Min had no choice but to search for answers. Not for a video, not to prove anything, but to understand who, or rather, what, he was dealing with. Ayako said the woman in the white hat was not a nameless spirit. She had once been human, and her name was the key. They began with the oldest records connected to Route 463. In the archive room of a local library, Min combed through yellowed newspapers. Their ink faded, their edges brittle and fragile. Most were short articles about accidents, disappearances, or unidentified persons, but in the corner of one issue from 1983, Min found a small headline that had almost been overlooked. "Female florist goes missing on a rainy night." Her name was Shiori Tanaka, 21 years old. She worked at a flower shop less than a kilometer from Route 463. According to the article, Shiori left the shop later than usual that evening. It was drizzling. She was wearing a wide-brimmed white hat, a birthday gift she had received just days earlier. That was the last time anyone ever saw her. There was no body, no direct witnesses, only a vague statement from a driver who claimed he had seen a young woman dressed in white walking along Route 463 around midnight. Police at the time concluded that she had run away and quickly closed the case due to lack of evidence. 2 weeks later, however, A local resident discovered a white hat hanging from a tree branch near the forest edge beside the road. The article offered no graphic details, only stating that the hat was soaked through and marked with dark stains. The file ended there. Ayako stared at the black and white photograph of Shiori printed in the paper. Her face was gentle, her eyes still held life. She was never allowed to leave, Ayako said quietly, not because she died, but because her death was never acknowledged. Min understood then. Shiori was never found, never buried, never properly named in death. She was left behind on that road, both literally and figuratively. Route 463 keeps her there, Ayako continued, and the hat is the last thing that belonged to her. It's how she proves to herself that she still exists. Min looked again at the small photograph showing the hat at the scene. There was a detail he hadn't noticed before. Beneath the hat on the road were long streaks of water, like footprints leading out from the forest, and then turning back in the opposite direction. A loop. Min folded the newspaper. From that moment on, the name Shiori was no longer just data in an old file. It became a call. And things that are called by name often answer. Chapter 9. WHO is sitting behind me. That night, Min dreamed he was driving. Not the vague kind of dream that fades at the edges, but one so vivid he could feel the subtle vibration of the steering wheel beneath his palms. The road stretched ahead, dark, narrow, and terrifyingly familiar. Route 463. It was raining. Heavy drops struck the windshield, smearing into long streaks as the wipers moved back and forth in a steady rhythm. Each sweep revealed the same empty road. No cars, no people, only the sound of the engine and the pounding of Min's heart. Then he felt it. He didn't see anything. He simply knew. Someone was sitting in the back seat. Min didn't dare turn around. His eyes locked onto the rearview mirror. At first, the glass was fogged with moisture, reflecting only the dull yellow glow of the headlights. Slowly, something took shape within the blur. White. Round. Familiar. The brim of a white hat. It didn't appear suddenly. It felt as if it had always been there, waiting for Min to gather the courage to notice it. His throat tightened as he tried to convince himself this was only a dream. But dreams didn't send icy chills crawling down his spine like this. "Aren't you going to look back?" A woman's voice came from behind him, not from a single point, but from the entire car, blending with the sound of the rain. Min tried to scream, but his throat locked. The car kept moving, though he couldn't remember pressing the accelerator. The road ahead began to curve unnaturally, as if closing in on itself. He jolted awake. The bedroom was dark. There was no rain, no engine noise. Min sat up, gasping for air, cold sweat soaking through his shirt. It was just a dream. Then he looked to his right. On the chair beside his desk, under the faint glow of the bedside lamp, sat a white hat. It was placed neatly, the brim facing him, as if waiting to be worn. Min remembered clearly. He had put the hat inside a bag, zipped it shut, and locked it in the trunk of his car. He stood, moving slowly. The air in the room felt colder with every step. When he leaned closer and looked inside the hat, a familiar smell rose up: dampness, rain, cold metal. Behind his neck, a faint breath brushed past. The mirror on the wall reflected Min standing alone in the room. Then the light flickered. For a split second, Min saw it in the reflection. A white figure standing directly behind him. He spun around. The room was empty. Only the white hat remained. And with it, the certainty that from this moment on, Min was never alone anymore. Chapter 10. When she stands right behind you. After that night, Min no longer trusted the boundary between waking and dreaming. Everything began to slip quietly out of place. Like a hairline crack in glass, easy to ignore at first, but impossible to deny once seen. The white hat remained. Min did not dare touch it, nor did he dare throw it away. He placed it on the highest shelf, avoiding direct eye contact, as if staring at it for too long would cause it to move on its own. Ayako arrived that evening. The moment she stepped inside the room, she stopped short. Her expression changed instantly. She asked no questions. She only stared at the empty space behind Min. "She's here," Ayako said. "Very close." The temperature in the room dropped noticeably. Min felt it not on his skin, but as a crushing pressure on his chest that made every breath difficult. Ayako placed a small mirror on the table, angling it toward Min. "Don't turn around," she warned. "Only look into the mirror." Min obeyed. At first, the mirror showed only himself. Then the light in the room dimmed slightly, as if something had absorbed it. A shadow formed behind Min's shoulder in the reflection. It grew clearer, sharper, stable. A woman wearing a white hat. She didn't stand flush against him. There was exactly one step of distance between them, far enough not to touch, close enough to never leave. Her hair hung forward, hiding half her face. The exposed skin was pale and expressionless. Her eyes were dark, deep, and reflected no light. Min's body went rigid. Cold sweat gathered at the base of his neck. "She only appears through reflective surfaces," Ayako said softly. "Mirrors, glass, screens. She doesn't want to be seen directly, but she needs to be seen." Min noticed something worse. Every time he blinked, the figure in the mirror moved slightly closer. Slowly, patiently. "She's marking you," Ayako said. "When that distance disappears, you'll replace her on Route 463. A soft click sounded behind Min, very faint, like fabric brushing against a collar. Min felt something cold and light settle onto his head. The hair at the back of his neck stirred. Ayako shouted, "Don't move." Min stared at the mirror. In the reflection, the white hat was now on his head. Its brim shadowed part of his face, making him look not entirely like himself anymore. Ayako swept her arm forward and knocked the mirror to the floor. It shattered. The room shook as if hit by a sudden gust. Though the windows were closed, the pressure vanished at once. Warmth returned. Min reached up with trembling hands. There was no hat, but the cold sensation lingered. Ayako looked straight at him, her voice grave. "She's touched you. Now, she's certain you're next." Chapter 11. The Road That Must Be Returned To. Min did not want to return to Route 463. Just hearing the name was enough to make his chest tighten, as if something were squeezing his heart from the inside. But after the moment the white hat had touched his head, Min understood a single, unavoidable truth. The road had never left him. It had only been waiting. Ayako told him that if the connection was not ended at its point of origin, the spirit would never release him. Not out of hatred, but because its nature was repetition. Route 463 was Shiori's final moment, stretched and looped endlessly, and Min had stepped too far into that moment to walk away. They set out just before 3 in the morning. The sky was clear, without rain, yet thick fog clung low to the asphalt, swallowing the headlights after only a few meters. Min drove. Ayako sat in the passenger seat. Neither of them spoke. Words were unnecessary. They both knew that if this night failed, there would be no second return. As the car entered the forest stretch, the radio turned on by itself. Not music, only static. Long, distorted waves of noise, fretted with broken sounds that resembled interrupted breathing. Ayako immediately shut the radio off. But the sound did not disappear. It lingered in the air, as if it were no longer coming from the car. "She knows we're here," Ayako said quietly. The vehicle slowed as they approached the narrowest section of Route 463, the same place where the white hat had first appeared. Min felt it clearly now. Someone was sitting in the back seat. He did not need a mirror. He did not need reflection. The presence alone was enough, dense, heavy, filling the entire interior of the car. "Don't turn around," Ayako reminded him, "no matter what you hear." Min heard fabric shifting behind him. Then breathing. Very close. So close that if he turned his head even slightly, the breath would brush against his face. The car came to a complete stop. Ayako stepped out first, holding her ritual bag. She stood in the center of the road, illuminated by the headlights, her shadow stretching long and distorted across the asphalt. The air around them dropped sharply in temperature, as if an unseen wind were blowing against the natural flow. Min opened his door. The moment his foot touched the ground, a crushing pressure hit him. Dizziness surged, nearly forcing him to collapse. In that instant, Min heard a familiar voice, gentle, intimate, right beside his ear. "At last, you came back." Min did not look. But he knew. Shiori was standing directly behind him, on Route 463. And this time, she had no intention of disappearing. Chapter 12, The Rearview Mirror. Min stood in the middle of Route 463, his feet feeling as if they had been nailed to the cold asphalt. The headlights of the car behind him cast harsh light onto the trees, stretching their shadows into twisted, hanging shapes. The air was so dense it felt solid, every breath heavy with the smell of damp forest and old metal. Ayako stood a few meters away, beginning the ritual. She did not turn her back to the forest, nor did she face Min directly. Her eyes were fixed on the empty space between them, where there was nothing and where everything was. She won't appear directly, Ayako said softly, only through reflection. Min swallowed and turned back toward the car, each step dragging an invisible weight behind it. When he opened the driver's door, a familiar cold rushed out, as if someone had been sitting inside for a very long time. He sat down, his trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. The rearview mirror reflected the road behind him, empty, pitch black. No one stood there, no shadow. For a brief moment, Min exhaled in relief. Then the headlights flickered. In the mirror, a white shape appeared in the back seat. Not all at once, it slowly took form, like a photograph developing in a darkroom. First the brim of the hat, then long strands of hair hanging down. Finally, a pale, lifeless face. Shiori. Her eyes were not looking at Min. They looked through him, as if Min were nothing more than part of the road itself. Her lips parted slightly. She made no sound, but Min heard her clearly inside his mind. Do you know what it feels like to never be able to leave? The mirror trembled. Min felt the back seat sink slightly, though no sound accompanied it. The temperature inside the car dropped sharply, his breath turning into thin white mist. Ayako slammed her hand against the window. Don't answer. Don't speak. Shiori tilted her head, the white hat tilted with it, at an angle no human neck should allow. Just one stretch. Her voice came again, no longer a whisper. Take me to the end. Min's hands tightened around the steering wheel. The engine vibrated, even though he hadn't turned the key. The speedometer needle twitched. Min realized the horrifying truth. If the car started moving, he would complete Shiori's loop. Cold sweat ran down his spine. Min squeezed his eyes shut, forcing every ounce of strength into keeping the car still. In that moment, he felt it. A cold hand resting gently on his shoulder. Light, familiar, as if it had done this countless times before. Ayako screamed the final incantation. The rearview mirror cracked. A scream erupted at the same time, whether from Shiori or from Route 463 itself. Min could not tell. The headlights flickered violently. When Min opened his eyes, the mirror had shattered, fragments scattered across the floor of the car. The back seat was empty. But on Min's shoulder, the cold remained. Chapter 13, What Shiori Wants. After the rearview mirror shattered, Route 463 fell into a terrifying stillness. It was not the normal quiet of late night, but the sensation of a road holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. Min remained seated in the car, his arms numb, his heart pounding wildly. Ayako stood outside, her head bowed low, as if listening to something only she could hear. She hasn't left, Ayako said after a long silence. She's just no longer standing behind you. Min stepped out of the car. The cold air bit into his skin, but the crushing pressure had eased. He looked around. The forest was still there. The road still stretched ahead, but something had changed. Min no longer felt hunted. Instead, a deep, spreading sadness settled in, like the fading echo of a cry that had ended decades ago. Ayako explained that Shiori was not a vengeful spirit driven by hatred. She was bound by interruption. Her death had never been completed. No body was found. No burial took place. No one ever spoke her name at the moment she died. The road swallowed her final instant and turned it into an endless loop. She doesn't want to hurt anyone, Ayako said quietly. She wants someone to finish it for her. Min finally understood. Those who slammed on their brakes after seeing Shiori had unknowingly stepped into the exact moment of her death. And when they looked back, when they turned their heads, they became the next piece of that moment. Shiori did not drag them away by force. She invited them. Gently. patiently, like asking for a ride. "And the hat?" Min asked. Ayako looked toward the forest. "The hat is the marker. Whoever wears it will be absorbed, becoming the next Shiori. Trapped on this road." Min shuddered. He remembered the sensation of the hat touching his head, the moment his reflection no longer looked entirely like himself. If the ritual had been delayed even slightly, Min would now be standing at the roadside, wearing the white hat, waiting for another car to pass. Ayako said there was only one way left to end everything, not by banishing Shiori, but by returning her right to leave. She needed a proper ending, a moment where her death was acknowledged, where she was no longer abandoned in the middle of the road. Ayako did not say what the cost of that would be. Min stared down at the dark asphalt, where countless old brake marks overlapped and faded into one another. For the first time, Route 463 no longer felt like a cursed place. It felt like a place that had been holding onto someone who was never properly sent away. Chapter 14. Do not turn around. Ayako chose the narrowest stretch of Route 463, where the forest pressed in from both sides as if the road itself were being crushed between living walls. This was the site of the highest number of accidents, and the place where Shiori appeared most often. Ayako said that if a spirit still lingered, it would gather where memory was strongest. The ritual began at 3:17 a.m. Min stood in the center of the road, his back to the forest, his face toward the darkness ahead. Ayako warned him clearly, no matter what he heard, no matter what he felt, he must never turn around. One direct look would complete the replacement Shiori had been searching for. Ayako drew the ritual circle with salt and the ashes of burned talismans. The air changed almost immediately. Wind rose from nowhere. The treetops shook violently, leaves rustling like hundreds of footsteps moving together in the dark. Min began to hear whispering. At first it was distant, like wind slipping through cracks in stone. Then it grew closer, close enough that he could distinguish each breath, each broken pause in the voice. "Are you here?" Shiori's voice. It was no longer distorted, no longer cold, only sorrow remained, a grief compressed into a single moment, stretched across decades without release. "Don't leave me behind," the voice said from directly behind Min. "I just want to keep going." Pressure settled onto Min's shoulders. An unseen weight forced him to brace himself to remain standing. Freezing air spilled down his neck and crawled along his spine. Min could feel something approaching from behind. Fabric brushing against asphalt. Bare footsteps. Slow. Very close. Ayako raised her voice, chanting louder as the wind tore at her words. The paper talismans shook violently, their edges blackening as if burned. Though no fire was present, Min heard crying, not screaming, but muffled sobs held back for far too long. Then something light rested on Min's head. The white hat. Cold spread instantly, as if memories not his own were pouring in. Images flashed through his mind, a rain-soaked road, headlights, panic, then darkness. "Just turn around," Shiori whispered. "Just look at me." Every instinct in Min screamed to obey, but he clenched his teeth, shut his eyes, and held his position. Ayako shouted the final incantation. She lunged forward, tore the white hat from Min's head, and hurled it deep into the forest. A scream ripped through the night, so raw and painful that Min collapsed to his knees. The wind stopped abruptly. The trees fell silent. Route 463 returned to stillness. The ritual was complete. But Min knew. Not everything had truly ended. Chapter 15. The Road Without an End. When everything finally settled, Route 463 looked like any ordinary road. The fog thinned, the unnatural wind ceased, and the forest resumed its familiar nighttime sounds, crickets, rustling leaves, the quiet life of things that still belong to the living world. But Min knew better. Some things do not disappear simply because the surface returns to normal. Ayako remained seated by the roadside long after the ritual ended. She said nothing, her gaze fixed on the darkness where the white hat had vanished into the forest. Min did not rush her. They both understood that if Shiori had truly left, she would never appear in the same way again. They left Route 463 just before dawn. They did not turn around. They did not look into mirrors. Min drove straight on until the distant glow of city lights appeared, proof of another world. One where people lived without knowing how close they had come to being taken. In the days that followed, Min stopped dreaming about the road. There was no rain, no backseat passenger. His room felt normal again. The white hat did not return. Ayako said these were good signs. Either the spirit had moved on, or it had been pushed far enough away from the living world. 3 months passed. One morning, Min came across a short article in the local news. No photograph, no dramatic headline, just a few lines tucked into a corner of the page. A white hat was discovered at the edge of the forest near Route 463. Nearby were footprints leading deeper into the woods, but no person was found. Min read the lines over and over. His hands grew cold. When Ayako heard the news, she was silent for a long time before speaking a single sentence. Perhaps someone else saw her. That night, Min went out to his car for work. The city was quiet. Street lights reflected across the windshield in long, pale streaks. Min opened the door, sat in the driver's seat, and took a deep breath. Everything felt normal. Then he glanced at the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. Min exhaled. Slowly, very slowly, a white blur appeared at the edge of the mirror. Its shape was unclear, not quite human, not quite a shadow, just a familiar whiteness standing at the roadside behind the car. Min did not turn around. He started the engine. As the car rolled forward, a voice brushed softly against his thoughts, so close it felt as though it came from inside his own head. "Thank you for taking me part of the way." Min could not tell if it was a farewell or a greeting, meant for the next one. Route 463 is still there. Cars still pass through it every night, and most drivers see nothing at all. But every once in a while, a white shape appears at the roadside, waiting, patient, asking for just one more ride. If you ever drive alone at night, and your rearview mirror shows something that wasn't there before, don't turn around. Some roads don't want to be remembered. They want to be continued.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.